The idea of getting upset about people copying is just ridiculous. Like, I think we should be more fearful of when everyone stops copying you. Like, the day that no one copies you is far, far more frightening than the day everyone's copying you.
Yeah.
I think that like they'll be able to copy what they can see, but they won't be able to copy what they can't see, which is understanding why each of those pieces are in place. And when something changes in the future, they won't be able to iterate from there because they don't know why it was there in the first place.
Not the why. This is related to something I wrote last week. Don't be so worried about people who imitate your work. They only know the what, but not the why. If you stopped being creative, so would they. A photocopier isn't an artist, even if it can recreate the Mona Lisa.
I love that. Because at the end of like, you are source in that situation. And so everyone is there for like a subset of you. And they require you to live. You don't require them. And the equal opposite is, I think we should be more fearful of when everyone stops copying you. Like, the day that no one copies you is far, far more frightening than the day everyone's copying you.
Yeah. Jimmy Carr refers to China as a cover band. You know, yeah. It's like they're the cover band of the Beatles. And he says, you know, they're good. And in many ways, they're able to produce things at more scale and so on and so forth. But they're not driving the innovation forward in that same way.
Yeah, the idea of getting upset about people copying is just ridiculous. Like, yeah, that's all. But
you understand why it's painful, right? If someone's gone through, okay, let's test and test and test and test and test, and then finally find a particular formula that works, and then 10 people downstream get the benefit of this hard, laborious, effortful, late night grind and iteration, and they just got to be like, oh, that thing.
Yeah. So I think that like they'll be able to copy what they can see, but they won't be able to copy what they can't see, which is understanding why each of those pieces are in place. And when something changes in the future, they won't be able to iterate from there because they don't know why it was there in the first place.
Not the why.
Right. And so like, I mean, I've obviously dealt this with in a business context where like real dollars are at stake. And so like in the gym world, you know, gym launch, for those who don't know, I had a big licensing company. We had 5,000 locations. And anyways, so we had basically business processes that we would, you know, iterate and figure out why this worked. And so then I used to keep a list of names, and then it got too long and tiresome to keep the names of all the people who tried to take the stuff and then sell it as their own. I say their names every night before I go to bed. You think I don't remember you? I remember all of you. And so none of them 10 years later are still around. And none of them even came to a 10th of the size of Gym Launch. And it was because it wasn't theirs. Like, the person that I would be far more afraid of, somebody who comes out with a significantly better system than what we had to help gyms make more money and help their clients more. But like, to this day, like, there still isn't one, and Gym Launch is still the category king in that industry. And so it's like and that's because we were talking about this earlier, everything is in R&D for us. And so we actually were the only licensing company that had an R&D department, and we would test. We call them plays, but we test plays every 14 days. And so we'd spend 50 or 100 grand on just a test. We'd be like, all right, let's test this new marketing campaign. Or we'd say, hey, let's test this new high ticket sales process. Or hey, what if we tried to sell memberships via chat? Let's just give it a shot, see what happens. And honestly, 70% of the time, it was worse than the control. Like, it didn't work as well. And what we would do is we'd present it to the licensees and say, hey guys, guess what we just spent 50 grand on that you don't have to spend money on? Look at the results of this sell memberships
Total
via
dog
chat.
shit.
Yeah. But the thing is that most people are actually really happy to know that it didn't work, because it felt like they were scratching an itch. They're like, oh, great, I don't have to do that one. Yeah. Like, someone did that test for me. So anyways, all that to say, unless you have that trail of bodies behind you that led you to figure out this one thing, when there is a kink in the system because some external condition changes, which it always will, they then don't know, which means you're always still going to be ahead.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, because if you understand the physics of the system, if you understand the dynamics of why you're doing the things that you're doing, and something changes, you can respond. But it goes back to people with high standards. You have to presume that you win in the weeds.
Yeah.
You have to presume that you win in the weeds. And if you do, and if you're continuing to be this close to it, as soon as things change, you go, that's interesting. Why has that happened? And that then allows you to continue to iterate.
And you see it because you're in the weeds, right? Somebody who's all the way zoomed out, just like, yeah, copy paste that. They're like, they're late because they have to see that it's working consistently. So they're already 3-6 months behind. Then they start trying to figure out how to implement it, and then they start implementing it. And then what they don't see is the things that made the conditions that made it work to begin with. And so like, if you just assume that you're always in the lead, then it means sure, 2nd through 10th place will always copy number 1, but to the victor go the spoils. And so you will, like, no one gives who is 4th place at the Olympics.